Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Ski Instructor Podcast. My name is Dave Burrows. I'm the director and owner of SnowPros Ski School based here in the Port de Soleil in Switzerland. It's been a really funny season. I know that we haven't released an episode of the podcast since about mid-January, but since then I'd say it probably hasn't even snowed at all except for about 2 days ago. When we went out and had a super powder day, but it's really been a very strange season here in Europe. There's been a massive spell of high pressure that's just sort of sat here over the Alps for pretty much the whole of January, which is great. Clients love that kind of thing, but it doesn't, it makes for quite icy pistes and difficult skiing for the tourists. But the sunshine is the important thing. So sunglasses on in January, and then come February, a whole bunch of difficult conditions. So there's a lot of rain, a lot of wind, high winds all the way across the Alps, and that's made February quite different. So interesting for now. But this latest sort of batch of snow has probably topped up the piste sufficiently so that we're good all the way through now towards the end of the season. My guest this week is Dr. Jim Taylor. Dr. Jim Taylor is a renowned sort of skiing psychologist. And I wanted to talk to Jim and share this sort of conversation that I'd had with you. I've spoken to Jim a couple of times before. One, when I was trying to set up something that he could do with our clients, which didn't quite come off. But and then I've also read quite extensively a lot of the things that he puts out there in terms of marketing materials, and also some of the things that I'm subscribed to. So I'm really bought into this idea of psychology within snow sports, and I wanted to have a sort of chat with Jim and find out a little bit more about what he does and how he does it. The interview, we didn't really have a great deal of time, and we had some technical issues because I was recording it in the middle of a massive snowstorm. And what happens is around here is that I guess the mobile phone antenna gets covered in snow and makes some weird connections. So long story short, you might hear a bit of an echo on some of the questions when I'm talking to Jim, and a couple of his answers dropped out, but I've tried to edit out those gaps and those pauses. And we went on to have a really lovely conversation. So we talked about his skiing background. We talked about psychology in skiing from both a sort of recreational and racing perspective. We talked about psychology for ski instructors themselves and how things that they can apply during their teaching. And there's some really cool stuff there that you can all sort of take away with you. And then we sort of went off into something that I was doing to do with visualization and my own sort of personal journey towards some exams I really wanted. So I didn't quite get to all of the topics that I wanted to with Jim. But hopefully we can have him back at another point in the future, because I think there's probably a lot more that we can explore. So this episode's not the longest one. There's no gap in the middle. I'm just presenting it as is, as I had the conversation with him. So this one will go straight through without me visiting you in the middle. Looking forward to. I'm trying to line up at the moment some more podcasts. Everyone's obviously busy because it's the middle of the ski season. So we'll probably you'll probably notice the increase in that once the ski season sort of winds down to an end. But yeah, until now, enjoy this episode. Enjoy the rest of the season. I hope you've got snow where you are, and enjoy the interview. Hello, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Jim Taylor. How are you?
Great, Dave. Great to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much. And where are you joining us from today? Whereabouts in the US are you?
I'm from Donner Summit, which is in the Sierra Nevada mountains, about 3 hours from San Francisco, quite near Squaw Valley, the former host of the Olympics, for some perspective there, where we haven't had snow in about a month. So it's quite lean, but it's beautiful weather and it's great training for the kids.
Oh, well, that's really good. I mean, we're experiencing a similar winter over here, actually, because we've got, well, we're just about in the middle of a snowstorm right now, but we've had, this is one of the leanest winters that I can remember for a long time. So we're really struggling a little bit with snow, but it looks like we're going to get quite a decent amount overnight, so it's going to be really good.
Very good.
So we've spoken before. and I think probably it's best for you if you just give me, one of my speech bubbles here is kind of your skiing background.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you give us that, and then maybe how you got into the sort of psychological aspect of what it is that you do for a living now.
Absolutely. So I grew up skiing. I started skiing at 2 years old in Vermont, and started racing at 6. Got serious at age 9, and then at 13 I went to Berkmont Academy, which is the first full-time ski academy in the U.S., where I raced competitively there. During that journey, I reached a top 20 national slalom ranking, had some world ranking that was not particularly admirable in particular. The way I put it is I was world ranked, but not world class, meaning the best. I competed against the best ski racers in the world, but they weren't worried about me.
Okay.
So, but certainly ski racing was a huge part of my life. I skied collegiately as well. And then when one of my challenges as a young ski racer was I was what was called a mind job, or a head case, meaning I had some ability, but my mind always got in the way of my ski racing. Mm-hmm. And there's a cliche that people become psychologists to figure themselves out, Dave. And so I took a summer course related to sports psychology and a lot of the work that I do now with athletes. Mm-hmm. And I applied it to my ski racing, and massive turnaround. I went from having no confidence, falling a lot, to getting in the gate, believing I was going to win. Top 5 of every slalom I was in, except the U.S. Nationals, unfortunately, that year. And so I had this very powerful experience of the power of the mind in ski racing. And then when I got to college, I took a psychology course, and it's not like I chose sports psychology, it chose me. I didn't really have a choice in the matter. I just fell in love with it, and I knew that it was the path I wanted to follow. So I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, where I actually also continued ski racing and received my PhD in psychology. And for the last far too many decades that I want to admit, I've been focusing my attention on the psychology of sport, most specifically on ski racing, because that's my passion and that's the sport I know well. Mm-hmm. And it gives me the opportunity to work with young racers from junior elite up to World Cuppers, and work and. Yeah. And so, as well as PSIA and ski instructors as well.
Okay, all right. And are those clients, are they finding you? Are they coming to you? Because I know that you've got quite an extensive sort of way of marketing yourself. I mean, that's initially kind of how I found you, but yeah. Or are you working within certain programs as part of that? Because I know that's what you were doing with the US ski team. Is that right?
Right. Well, I do have a fairly extensive reputation in the sport. I write for skiracing.com regularly. I've been doing that for many, many years. And without sounding too full of myself, I'm sort of the go-to guy because there's really nobody else. There are other people who dabble in the psychology of ski racing. Yeah. But it's something I live and breathe and have an immense passion for. So people seem to find me because I have a presence in terms of reputation in the sport, as well as a strong presence on the internet.
Okay, all right. And so you say that the psychological aspect found you. I wonder how many skiers get into skiing for the same reasons. They get into ski instruction because they want to know maybe more about what they're all about, or what the sort of the fundamentals of skiing is all about. There certainly seems to be a lot of people taking entry-level ski instructor qualifications because of that. They're not necessarily interested in making a living as being a ski instructor, but they're definitely interested in learning more about it. Would that be the same for the psychological side of it, you think?
Well, certainly, and I'm a big believer that a great ski instructor is a great intuitive psychologist. They don't necessarily have the fancy degrees, but so much of what they do out in the snow with their clients is psychological. Because, yes, of course, they want to teach stance, body position, hand position, good turns, and so on. But so much of being on snow is deeply psychological, and whether it's having to do with confidence or anxiety or focus. And so much of what ski instructors do is psychological, and so I'm sure it's a huge attraction for people who are interested in the field of ski instruction.
That's interesting. That sort of emotional empathy, that ability to put yourself in the client's shoes. You're right. You do feel like you're doing sort of amateur psychology a lot of the time. I don't know whether the things that I am doing, especially in terms of if you've got nervous clients and that kind of thing. That is you're doing a lot of what I would call psychological kind of work with that person, more so than you would technical work, I'd say.
Well, inevitably both, because certainly when you've got skiers perhaps who are novices, and skiing is a pretty scary sport, and there's a lot of variability. There's snow conditions, there's weather, there's terrain, and there's oh Jesus.
That's all right. I just put a pause on it.
I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
And so, yes, people want to become better skiers technically, but the path through that is the mind. And so really good instructors will know how to work with people in terms of their ability to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
So if somebody has a run, they want to ski a bump run, for example, and they might be perfectly capable technically of doing it, but if they don't believe in their ability, they're not going to use that ability. So a big part of what ski instructors do is instill in them the confidence that they can do it. In a way, they lend their confidence to their clients. And they give them tools to focus on and to use as they're skiing down. And they help them overcome fear, doubt, worry that could interfere with their ability to successfully navigate the bump run.
It's amazing to me how often the mind gets in the way of otherwise technically very good skiers. I've got a client I was working with yesterday, and it was a very, very similar thing, but he would, in the end we had to boil it down just to one tiny little thing to think about, because otherwise if he let too much of the kind of the other thoughts that he would carry around with him on the mountain, it really got in the way of what he was trying to do. His head gets too jumbled. And that's that. I think that sort of simplification is quite an important thing sometimes for our clients.
Oh, without a doubt. And because when people are skiing, there can be so many things on their mind. And I mentioned snow conditions, weather, terrain, but there's also all the psychology stuff. Plus, there's the technical stuff. And so the ability for an instructor to clear out the clutter and get them to just focus on one simple thing that will make the difference. And it might be pole plant, it might be stance, whatever it is. If they can just focus on that one thing that enables them to ski the way they want in this particular situation, then they're more likely to ski well. And if they get to the bottom and they have a great experience, not only does it really identify what they need to focus on, but also builds their confidence. Because invariably when somebody's skiing a new level of challenge, they don't believe they can do it because they don't have any experience. And so getting the instructor to sort of, again, lend them their confidence in the skier and just get them to do it. Not necessarily fully committed, not necessarily fully confident, but just get them to do it, because rarely is the challenge in front of them as significant as they think it is.
No,
and
yeah, it's always the way.
If the ski instructor can give them the technical and mental tools to get down, then they get to the bottom and go, oh my gosh, that actually wasn't scary at all. That was super cool and really a great challenge. So the next time they go up, it's a lot easier and they can focus more on skiing it even better, and that's how they progress.
Yeah, it's often the courage, isn't it, to walk through that door or to walk over that threshold is the hardest bit. And actually the what's on the other side is not actually that big a deal. You're right. How does that go on to manifest itself at a much higher level? So you talked about working with kind of much higher level World Cup athletes and that kind of thing. If you're technically very, very good, perfect almost, then what kind of things are those guys worrying about?
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating about World Cuppers is that obviously they're all phenomenal athletes. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at that level. They're all incredibly technically skilled, as you suggest. They're all in great physical condition. Their equipment is incredibly well prepared.
Yeah.
So on any given day, what separates winner, podium, top 10, top 50.
Mm.
And it's really the mind.
Yeah.
And in a way, the mind is the final piece of the puzzle at that level. But what's interesting is that it's also the most neglected.
Yes.
Because the fact is, to get to that level, you have to be pretty good mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But another fact is that many racers who might be capable of being in the top 10 aren't able to achieve that level because of their mind. And I can think of several World Cuppers that I've worked with. One who's on the circuit now, and he's a consistent top 10, top 15 guy.
Mm-hmm.
He had been 70th in the world a couple of years ago. And if you think about it, the 70th best ski racer in the world is an incredibly good ski racer.
It sure is, yeah.
But he was still, 2-3 seconds off Marcel or Henrik or some of the other really top guys.
Mm.
And it really boiled down to his mind and how he approached things mentally. So a lot of the work we were doing involved imagery, routines, building confidence, how to focus effectively, how to get that ideal intensity and focus that enables him to ski consistently fast from start to finish.
Mm.
And I'm not certainly taking total credit, because he got stronger and he got better technically and so on, but he felt in this particular case that the mind was the one piece that was missing, and that wasn't a part that he finally had the piece of the puzzle that now is enabling him to be consistently at the highest level.
Yeah, it's it's amazing. You're absolutely right. How do you could throw a rug over, especially in the top 30 in the World Cup slalom at the moment. There's I don't know what they're saying, was something like 1.5 seconds between all of them, and the field is so strong that. And a lot of these guys are looking for these tiny little marginal gains that are going to get them to the next level. And I wonder how many of them are neglecting something as important as their psychology and their mindset going into the race day.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I can speak certainly in the U.S., the mental side of ski racing is largely neglected at the development level. Mm-hmm. Very few. I don't think any program has a full-time mental coach or sports psychologist involved, and unfortunately, sports psychology and mental training have sort of gotten a bad rap, and it's usually seen separate from technical and tactical and physical and so on. Is over here on the right side, and the mental side is on the left side, where we don't really address it unless there's a problem. Mm-hmm. And my approach is that you should approach the mental side the same way you do the physical and technical side. You don't wait to get injured before you do conditioning.
Yeah.
You don't wait to develop technical flaws before you go see a coach or an instructor.
Yeah.
You get on a conditioning program. You get on a snow training program to prevent those things from occurring. And so that's really the way I look at mental training. It's just training. And you have to approach it the same way as the physical and on-snow training. It's still an uphill battle because people still have their biases. But what's interesting is that everybody will say the mental side is so important. Mm. But then I'll ask, well, how many of you are doing much about it? And you don't see a lot of hands going up. So it is the final piece of the puzzle. It's sort of the final frontier of athlete development, because these days the training of athletes is so sophisticated. In terms of physical preparation, nutrition, recovery, movement, that, like you suggest, the top athletes, they've all got it all. Mm. And yet it's that last piece of the puzzle of mind that ultimately separates those who can ski their best, and not just ski their best, but in that moment of the biggest race of their lives.
Now, do you think that is going to change? And the reason I say that is because there is an incredible focus. Every newspaper, everything I read these days, there's a big awareness of mental health, right? And I wonder if that will translate with the younger generation or the next generation coming through, that this is something that is to be welcomed, rather than maybe how it was in the old days where people might have looked at this from a different perspective. From a that's something for, I don't know, it's something we don't really need to worry about.
Right. Well, I've been saying that it's going to catch on and become fully integrated into our athlete development in our sport for decades, and it hasn't.
Okay.
And so, I'm still hopeful, and I'm certainly evangelizing constantly about the importance of it.
Yeah.
But whether it's old school sort of attitudes about the mental side of ski racing, or the fact that there's only so many resources and so much time that coaches can devote to it, I'm still optimistic, but it's certainly not appreciated, and there's not as much of an investment in resources necessary to really bring it to the same level, and it's the same level of respect, if you will, and the same level of application as conditioning on snow and nutrition and equipment and other significant contributors to ski racing success.
Do you think it could be to do with the coaches? Often you see the coaches when they flick to them, on the World Cup coverage. A lot of these guys are kind of quite old looking. I don't know. I mean, I imagine they've got everything else covered. But is it because of an older mindset amongst the coaches, or do you think it could be, or do you think as the coaches kind of move younger, maybe that will be something that changes?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've often thought, although I know many quote-unquote older coaches, highly experienced coaches who are very psychologically minded. But I think there's still a culture in coaching, and this is not just in ski racing, but in many sports, of you just need to work hard and train hard and you'll be fine, and you'll find success. And for many cases, I mean, being realistic, most of the best athletes in every sport in the world haven't used a sports psychologist. At the same time, many have these days. Certainly, tennis and golf, in particular, pretty much everybody is a sports psychologist involved.
Right.
And sport is the most psychological of sports. So I think partially there's just a culture, and cultures tend to be inertial, meaning they are slow to change. And I think another big challenge is that coaches, at least in the U.S., there's no formal education process for coaching. So you don't go to college and get a degree in coaching. So most coaches in the U.S. anyway, and I think it's a little different in Europe, but most coaches in the U.S. were probably ski racers themselves, and wanted to be a coach. So they get a job at some ski club or ski team, and they receive no sort of formal training. It's like an apprenticeship, I suppose. Yeah. And so then they don't receive any formal training about in all different aspects of ski racing performance, and so it's not simply a part of what they do and what they think about. And a lot of them intuitively do certain things mentally that can be very helpful, but another big issue is just time. Ski coaches are incredibly stressed for time, and they have so many things they need to do. So the things that aren't on their immediate radar screen, like setting courses, like booking travel and planning training, it's going to fall off. Yeah. And so I've seen so many coaches who are so interested in the mental side of ski racing, but they simply don't have the time to devote to it. And part of that is being educated about it, because there are all kinds of clinics they take and certification for on-snow training and to some degree conditioning. But there's not a lot on the mental side. Certainly U.S. ski team, the coach's certification has a very limited component of the mental side in their certification and education programs.
Yeah, okay. But within let's just before we kind of swap out of talking about World Cup and various stuff like that. Let's say you've had. I mean, over the last few years, we've had a few incredibly dominant personalities. You on the girls' side or on the women's side, you've got Michaela Schifrin. On the men's side, you've had Marcel Hirscher for the last God knows how long, and those guys to me just look like they're sort of, and I'd like your opinion as a kind of outsider looking in. What they just look like they're sort of incredibly mentally strong people who are able to focus all of their energies into one moment at the right time. Do you think that's something that's been coached into them, or do you think that that's something that maybe some people just have innately within them?
Well, it's a combination. There's no doubt that some people are just born with certain psychological capabilities, just like athletic ability. And you might argue that Marcel and Michaela are genetic freaks. Although what's interesting is Michaela went to Berkman Academy, as I did, and her coach there, Kirk Dwyer, who's basically credited with a lot of her success, said she was a very good athlete at Berk, but she wasn't the best female athlete at Berk. And she's not. If you look at her, she's not an imposing physical being. She's not super big, for example, or super tall. But yes, it's coached, but it's also just through experience. Some athletes, just through experience, learn how to deal with the mental side of ski racing better than others. But also, what's interesting, and I can speak to the fact that I've worked with many world-class and professional athletes in many sports as well as ski racing, is that they're also human.
Yeah.
And so at the last Olympics, both Marcel and Michaela were basically guaranteed of winning the gold medal in the slalom. And they didn't.
Yeah.
So what that speaks to is even the best in the world struggle mentally. And that they're human. I mean, I make a joke about how Michaela puts her speed suit on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And so, so yes, they have remarkable psychological capabilities.
Yeah.
But they also are human, and they can succumb to the pressures and the expectations placed on them.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay. All right. So then. Switching over to, we talked a little bit about how that manifests itself recreationally. So the clients that you deal with, do you only deal with athletes, or do you have kind of recreational skiers that talk to you about things that they might want to achieve, or maybe ski instructors, that kind of stuff too?
Yeah, mostly it's elite athletes, but I have over the years worked with ski instructor, with just skiers who want to improve. And I've worked with a number of the top ski schools around the U.S.: Vail, Aspen, Steamboat, Killington, many others. And really, there's not a lot of difference between a recreational skier trying to get down a new run and a World Cupper trying to ski as fast as they can down a GS course. There are differences in obviously athletic ability, in terms of conditioning and equipment and preparation, but they face many of the same challenges psychologically, just at just at different levels. But if you think about it, you've got a 42-year-old woman who wants to ski down a particular run or ski powder. The same psychological issues and challenges apply there as Marcel and Michaela getting ready to run a World Cup race course. And for me, the key ones, and I've touched on them already, is confidence. You have to believe you can do it. Physical intensity. If somebody's really anxious and tight and they're holding their breath, their body simply can't perform very well. Again, whether it's an intermediate run somebody's trying to get down, or a World Cup course.
Yeah.
Focus is another huge issue. The ability to focus on what will help you get down the hill. Again, World Cup course, intermediate blue run, same thing. As well as emotions, and whether it's fear or frustration or disappointment in having not done it last run. Again, the parallels are the same. The difference is the level of athletic ability and training and so on that separates, a middle-aged skier from a World Cupper.
Yeah, okay. I've noticed, and this is probably quite obvious, but I imagine that there is a base, or there is an explanation somewhere within psychology that explains all of this, and you can probably explain it better than I can. But I've noticed the ones that have the biggest issues with confidence are often, it's a bit of a stereotype, but it's often the kind of middle-aged lady with children or that kind of thing. And I've noticed from my own experience, as I got older and had more responsibility, you generally become more fearful about things. That presumably has its basis in psychology somewhere.
Without a doubt. And I think that Well, first of all, it is a little bit stereotypical, Dave. um, so, I'll tease you about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But whoever it is, certainly things like lack of confidence, fear, worry about consequences. I mean, let's be realistic. Skiing is a sport where there are risks.
Mm.
And unlike golf, I mean, golf is the most psychological of sports, as I said, but the ball's just sitting there. It's not moving. It's not going to hit you in the head. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So the consequence of failure is you don't get a very good score.
Yeah.
In skiing, the consequences of failure are injury and, on very rare occasions, death.
Mm.
And so that is a whole new psychological dimension to it. And it's easy when you're an 18-year-old kid with no responsibilities to just huck yourself off of a cliff.
Mm.
But for somebody who has a family and getting hurt could be a serious problem. There are greater consequences there, and so whether stereotypical or not, those kind of skiers are the ones who often struggle with being able to. They have this conflict between they want to play it safe and they want to just get down, and with wanting to get better and challenge themselves. And that's one of the most wonderful aspects of skiing, Dave, is the ability to challenge and try new things and overcome all the different variables that are present in skiing. And that's why one of the most wonderful things about skiing is that there's no clear criterion of success. So, for example, in tennis, the ball has to go land in the court between the lines.
Yes.
In golf, the ball needs to go in the cup. But in skiing, you get to the bottom in one piece, that's a victory. And it doesn't matter if it's pretty, it doesn't matter if it was easy, but you get to the bottom, it's like, let's step on that metaphorical top step of the Olympic podium and hear the Olympic music playing, because that's their victory. And that's so much why people ski.
Yes, but for different...
That desire for...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but for different people, it's different things, right? So for some people, getting down to the bottom of the run, fair enough. Okay, that's a big deal for them. But if you're, let's say, you're the next, couple of levels up, and you're a ski instructor, and you want to get down with a certain, criteria that you've got in your head that you want to have met. If you don't meet that, you failed, right? It's different for everyone. I guess that is the beauty of skiing, that it is different for everybody.
Right, and there can be different definitions of success, and all of them are legitimate for the level of the person who is trying to execute whatever they're trying to do. Yeah,
you're right. But I like what you said there, because I've been toying with this idea of responsibility being the thing, but it's not the responsibility, is it? It's the consequences of it going wrong, which is what is affecting people. Let's say you're a nervous skier and you're standing at the top of something. What's not going through your mind is your responsibilities. It's the consequences of those things going wrong.
Right, Dave. Unfortunately, you cut out there for about 10 seconds.
No, that's all right. I'll cover that again. So, what I found the most interesting thing about what you just said there was that it's not so much the responsibilities that are the issue. If you're a sort of nervous skier and you're standing at the top of a run or something like that, it's not the responsibilities that weigh heavy on your mind. It's the consequences of something going wrong that is actually the issue.
Right, exactly. And so, and the consequences could be serious injury. It could be embarrassment, because let's be realistic. Most people want to become good skiers and to look good and for people to think that they're good.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's sort of unfortunate, because I think it detracts from the beauty of our sport. That as long as you get down the hill the way you want and you have fun doing it, that should be a victory alone. But let's be realistic, in our culture, how people look matters, whether it's what they wear or how they ski. And in fact, skiing can be quite competitive. Recreational skiing can be quite quote unquote competitive, because you get a group of people together and you get their egos going, and they want to be the one who gets down the fastest or looks the best.
Yeah.
And we also live in a culture of comparison.
Yeah.
And so we want to be better than the people we're skiing with, or we want them to think we're really good. And that can be motivating, but it also can be a deterrent and can be psychologically difficult, because it prevents you then, it takes the focus away from skiing the best you can. And the best you can might not be great skiing, but it's all you've got.
Yeah.
And so it's really a matter of just focusing on, this is where I'm at, and then looking for ways to improve over time and not worrying what other people think, because ultimately nobody really cares that much, because everybody's out there skiing and having a good time and worrying about how they look.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I knew that this interview would uncover certain difficult truths about myself, but I am entirely interested about how good I look when I come down the mountain. For me, skiing is all about the aesthetic. So I really like to make nice turns, and for me that the nice turns also combines with kind of having a nice physical aesthetic to it as well. And so for me, that's kind of what it's all about, as opposed to kind of any particular sort of performance. What would you call it? Performance kind of indicators, you know, or did he get the pressure in the right place, blah, blah, blah. Don't care about that. For me, as long as it looks kind of aesthetically pleasing, that's what I'm interested in the most. I don't know what that says about me, though.
Well, no, it's very common. You're a professional ski instructor, and so, of course, you want to look really good. And, you know, I'm a long retired skier, and I still want to make sure I look good. And the fact is, you know, I haven't seen you ski, but I'm going to assume that you're a phenomenal skier, and you might take a run and come down and go, I just didn't feel very good. I don't think I skied well. Well, from the outside, you look the same way you always do.
Yeah, well, that is true. I used to do this for my friend Ben. Hi Ben, if you're around. But Ben started the ski school with me. He's since gone back to the UK, but which is a great loss for all of us. But he always used to say the same thing. So every now and then I'd send him a video of me skiing. He's like, yeah, what do you think of this? You know, I've changed this, that, and the other. And he would always reply back the same thing. He would say, it just looks the same. And you're like,
right.
And that was his way of teasing me, you know, like teasing my kind of vanity, I guess.
Yeah, but again, this is what you do for a living, and you want to demonstrate your competence.
Yeah.
And I, as for me, I mean, I was a fairly accomplished ski racer, and I want to continue as I get older to demonstrate my competence. And I think one of the great challenges for both of us is that skiing back 20, 30 years ago was different than it is now. And so I see a number of people from my days of racing, phenomenal skiers, but so old school. And it looks funny now, you know, with the knee tucked in and the significant countering, and because of my work and the fact that I'm on the hill with ski racers, it's always been very important for me to have credibility. I want them to look at me and go, boy, he's a really good skier. So I've devoted immense amounts of time over the last, I guess, decade or more, as skiing has evolved with the new skis to ski new. And so, you know, there's always that evolution and challenge. And I mean, every time I go skiing, I'm working on my skiing, even though, you know, it's probably not going to change in any substantial way. And hopefully it's just, you know, good enough that the racers I work with will look at me and go, oh, Dr. Jim, you're a heck of a skier.
Yeah.
And that's partially credibility, partially it's my ego. I mean, I want people to perceive me as a very good skier, especially with the athletes and the coaches that I work with.
While we're on this kind of, I wasn't expecting to go off on a technical tangent, but you know, it sounds like to me, you know, you were racing a reasonable amount of time ago. I don't want to date you too much, but when you're adapting to kind of the new skis, or when you went through that period, what are the sort of the biggest things that you had to do slightly differently, apart from kind of unweighting of you know, the skis to get them to turn?
Sure. Wider stance. Initiating the turn with the inside ski, skiing a little more square, skiing with a little higher hips, and the expression of stacking. So everything is built on everything else and sort of very much aligned. And so you know, if you look at, you know, even 15, 20 years ago, compared to skiers now, there's a significant difference, and a lot of it is a function of the skis. Boots haven't changed much over the years, but now they're, for example, it used to be all about weighting the downhill ski, and now it's much more even distribution. So there are some very clear differences that aesthetically you see it for sure, and also in terms of the ability to perform on the new skis, also very significant and dramatic.
Okay. That's so. Okay, I'm pleased that we went off on the tangent. That was really, really good. So if we then move over to the teachers themselves, and this is something that I think would be quite useful probably to a lot of people that are listening to this. I kind of want to ask you, what are the things that they could apply when they're out on the mountain as basic psychological techniques? But I suppose that's too wide, isn't it, in terms of a topic?
No, not necessarily at all. No, because in my work with ski schools over the years, it's not so different from working with coaches working with ski racers. Again, a different level, but the same psychological issues. And so for me, the most common strategies that I find really helpful that instructors can put into use are positive self-talk, because that affects confidence. And it's common for a skier to be at the top of the run and go, "I can't do this." Well, there's an old saying that if you don't think you can do something, you're right.
Yeah.
So positive self-talk. Second is breathing. Now, breathing is one of those things that we don't think about much because you don't need to think about it much. It just happens automatically. Yet, whether it's a World Cupper or a first-time skier, and they're nervous and they're having doubts, they're going to hold their breath.
Yeah.
And I actually do this drill with ski instructors. I did a PSIA event in the fall in Colorado with their demo teams, and I had them hold their breath while they're skiing. And it's very powerful feedback, Dave, because it shows what happens is body tightens up, balance goes back, inability to focus effectively, and lack of sort of agility and suppleness.
Yeah.
And so the simple act of getting people to consciously breathe does a couple of things.
Yeah.
First of all, it brings their focus in on themselves instead of the stuff going on around them. Second, it gets oxygen into their system, into their bodies, which is necessary for basic functioning. It also makes people feel more in control, because when people are afraid, their body is basically rebelling. It's saying, "No, I'm not going there." And so the one thing that skiers can control physiologically is their breathing.
Okay.
So breathing has tremendous physiological and psychological and emotional effects. So breathing is really important.
Yeah.
Another thing is the ability to focus. And so instructors can sometimes be quite verbose, and they'll have this 2 or 3 sentence long description of how they want their clients to do something technically. But there's no way somebody can go down the hill thinking about those 3 or 4 sentences. So what I recommend is having a keyword, and where you break the instruction down to one simple word. Like if somebody's dropping their hands, their keyword might be up or forward or drive, like a steering wheel.
Yeah.
Or if they're trying to get some countering going on, to say pinch. So as they create separation with their upper and lower body, they feel that pinch at their waist.
Yeah.
So identifying a very specific keyword and then having the client repeat the keyword as they're going down the hill.
Yeah.
Because focusing in skiing is incredibly difficult. Because you can be ready to take a run and you're totally focused on keeping your hands up, for example.
Yeah.
But then you push off. All of a sudden, there are a lot more important things to think about, such as survival.
Yeah.
And as soon as somebody stops focusing on that thing that they're improving, they go back to their old habits, which not only means they're not improving, but it's making it harder to improve, because the more times they repeat a bad habit, the more deeply ingrained it becomes in their motor cortex, which makes it harder to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So an essential goal for a ski instructor is to ensure that client has that focus of what they're working on every turn, every run.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And then a final one is mental imagery, or a lot of people call it visualization.
Yeah.
Getting people to close their eyes and see themselves doing it before they actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a vast amount of research that shows that when you do imagery, it's not just picturing stuff in your head. It actually triggers your motor cortex. So so the mind and the body are fooled into thinking you're actually doing it before you actually do it.
Mm. Mm.
And you see it with World Cuppers in the start area. You see it with figure skaters. You see it in almost every sport. The athletes closing their eyes before they perform, seeing and feeling themselves execute the performance that they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you came onto the topic of imagery, because, well, I wanted to share something with you and I guess all of the listeners as well. But this was something that I was doing before some of the tests that I had to do, and it was a sort of generalized imagery, but it was a sort of belief kind of thing. And I've read up a lot over the years on this particular idea of visualization and how it can help you in certain situations. So my one was I needed to believe that I could get to where I wanted to go in terms of my professional ambitions. And so what I did was I kind of imagined like a sort of an apartment or a corridor or a series of rooms, that kind of thing. So I'd walk into this door, and I'd do this imagery like almost every night before leading up to this kind of big event that I had. And I would sort of imagine that there was this door, and on the door it had kind of Dave Skiing written on it, and I'd go past, and then I'd walk down this corridor, and on every corridor there was a sort of open door of all these exams, and on each door there was a written, what it was that I'd passed, and it was open, and all of these doors were open of the ones that I'd passed. The ones that were closed were the ones that I'd failed. And then at the end, there was this sort of room where the door was ever so slightly ajar. And I could sort of, as I went through this imagery over the months and months and months and months, I kind of imagined eventually going into this magical room. And on the room it had kind of written Brevet Fédéral Suisse or whatever, the qualification that I wanted. And as weeks and weeks gone on and I got closer and closer to these exams, it was a question of me kind of stepping over the threshold and into this room. It was really, really funny. And eventually I got to the point where I could go into this room and look around and look at it and see it, even stay in it for a while. And actually when it came down to that kind of final moment of that exam, where I was standing at the top of this bump run, which was kind of my nemesis, this thing that I never imagined that I could do, I was able to close my eyes and go back to that place and imagine stepping over the threshold and into that room. And as soon as I opened my eyes, I went down this bump run and I nailed it that time. And for me, that in a nutshell was the power of being able to visualize something and work on it over a number of months in your own mind. Now mine was quite abstract, but it was enough for me. But you could also do that within actually the context of the thing that you wanted to do as well, right? That's also possible.
Oh, absolutely. And in working with ski schools and PSIA here in the U.S., I'm amazed I'm not amazed, but at the amount of fear that ski instructors experience when they're taking certification exams.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so many of them, they've already failed before they even get on snow.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe it. And your strategy really was about providing the opportunity to see doors opening rather than closing.
Yeah.
And obviously had a very big impact on your ability to believe that you could do what you needed to do.
Mm.
Because the fact is that ski instructors, most of them, the vast majority, are totally capable of passing their certification exams.
Yeah.
Or here in the U.S., qualifying for the demo teams that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But so often, the skiers, the instructors, just see this as basically like life or death.
Yeah.
And when I talk about life or death, I don't mean physical life or death. I mean sort of ego life or death. Their self-identity, their self-esteem, their goals and aspirations. And anytime you think a performance is life or death, you're doomed.
Yeah.
because it puts you into survival mode, fight or flight. You go caveman, and cavemen weren't very good skiers back 250,000 years ago, and so you get that fight or flight response, and that doesn't serve you well. And so a lot of the work I do with ski instructors at PSIA is helping them to prepare for these performances, because it's no different than an Olympic slalom, for example.
In their mind, for sure, yeah.
In their minds, exactly. This is their Olympics.
Yeah.
Right. And so providing them with the tools, and some of it is the practical stuff, like I mentioned, for example, imagery and breathing and keywords, but also approaching it with the right attitude. So having a process focus instead of an outcome focus.
Yeah.
So it's totally focusing on what do I need to do to perform today in the exam to get the outcome I want. Being aware of expectations. Oh my gosh, I have to make the demo team this year. Well, I have to? Really? Well, I need to. Wait a minute, you need to? Well, you need to eat. You need water.
Yeah.
But if you don't make the demo team, you'll be disappointed, but you'll survive. And so a lot of it is not just practical mental tools, but approaching these performances with the right attitude.
Yeah.
Because I've seen so many ski instructors and so many ski racers and so many athletes in other sports where they've already lost before they even get to the finish, before they've even begun, because they don't have the right attitude, the right approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it from, like I say, I'm only really relating my own experience, and I've written about it too. There's a blog somewhere out there exactly, what my kind of method was, but that's not the only time I've used that kind of thing. And I think it is incredibly powerful. What you can imagine is within certain boundaries is possible. And you can go into a performance and you can look at it in your mind from multiple angles. You can imagine it, you can fill it with detail, you fill it with colour, sound, whatever it is that works for you, and you can make it so sort of hyper real that you, like I say, it takes the anxiety out of it when you're having to do something, because oh no, it's okay, I've been here before, I've seen it before. Now, hello, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, and so for me I think it's an incredibly powerful thing, especially the audience of this podcast is will generally be ski instructors, and those guys will have certain performance anxiety issues with regards to exams, because they are quite important in I suppose in the grand scheme of things, certainly for those guys' life. You go up a level, you get a pay rise, you get more work, you get more respect, that kind of thing. It is important, and anything that we can kind of do or give to those people to make make that journey easier is going to be a good one.
Without a doubt. And there are some, again, as I've talked about, some very simple mental tools that they can use, and then also some basic approaches, how they're approaching their attitude toward exams and so on can make a massive difference. And what's most important is to be able to have them be able to step back and gain perspective. Because that I find, again, whether it's World Cuppers or ski instructors or skiers trying to get down the hill, it's the perspective they have. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to see to show people what I'm capable of, versus, oh my gosh, what happens if I mess up?
Yeah.
And so that right there can so distinguish those who perform their best and often end up getting the outcome they want from those who perform poorly and they have no chance of getting the outcome they want.
One of the things that I found quite interesting when I was looking into this kind of thing was this sort of concept of letting go of the outcome of what it is, the thing that you want. I can't remember exactly what the phrase is. It's kind of outcome independence, I think it is. And because if you really think about it, it's not really your decision whether you're good enough or not. In so many ways, you can apply it to anything. Actually, you can apply it here in a bar, approaching girls or whatever, or you can you're whatever, you can approach it to anything. It's not your decision in the end of the day. You go in there, you do your best,
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's the examiner's decision. It's not your decision.
Right. I mean, ultimately, all you can do is take your shot, and you want to make it the best shot you can.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting perspective, Dave. Letting go is incredibly difficult for something that you care deeply about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so, you almost have to be a Zen master to do it. So what I do, instead of trying to let it go, what I talk about is just accept it. So I really want to make the demo team, or I really want to get this level 400 certification, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to push against it, no, just let it go. Because often the more you push against something, the more it pushes back. And so instead of letting go, just accept that this is something I really want. I really want to make demo team. But then make the shift from outcome focus, outcome goal, to process. So great, I really want that. Now, and you can't see me, but I'm shifting my gaze away from the outcome onto the process. So yes. I really want that outcome. Yes, here's what I need to do to get it.
Yes.
I need to have fun with it. I need to be relaxed. I need to be positive. I need to be well prepared.
Yeah.
And so it's accepting the outcome because it's there. It's like the pink elephant in the room. It's not going anywhere. But then turning away from it and saying, this is how I'm going to get that outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm totally going to focus on what I need to do to ski my best to get the outcome.
Well, that has been, and I guess always will be, the way that I kind of tend to prepare for anything. Is that if there is something that I really, really want, my way of doing it is to go through that kind of deep level preparation. So, I don't know, the phrase that a good friend of mine, Rich, always used to say is, hi Rich, if you're there, would be train hard, fight easy, right? So he would say,
right.
Go into the details, work out exactly what it is, what's involved in this thing that you've got to do, what do the levels look like, where can I find information about this? Then, how can I find out how I match up to the level? What do I need to do to get there so that I can turn up prepared and I'm 100%, 110% of the level? That would be my way of going about it. Yeah, you're right. You accept the level, but you can then right. Okay, so how can I break this down into steps that I can manage that are doable?
Yep.
So I know you're tight on time, Jim, and I know we started late and we've had some technical issues and stuff like that, but we've already got some amazing stuff here. So if people need to find you, I always let people know that where they can find the guests on this podcast. So where can people find you if they need you? You've got some amazing stuff online.
I've got a website. It's drjimtaylor.com, drjimtaylor.com, and I've got tons of written material free that people can access related to skiing, ski racing, and many other aspects of performance. And people are welcome to drop me an email if they have questions or comments as well.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'll drop a link to that in the podcast notes. But I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join me this evening. That's really, really cool of you.
Great pleasure, Dave. Always fun to talk shop with people who love the sport as much as I do. So I'm always glad to contribute in the future.
All right. Well, hopefully we can get you back for a part 2 at another point in the future. Thank you very much.
Very good, Dave. Take care.
All right, man. See ya.